and welcome. My name is CY. You can find me on Instagram at Tokyo Station Pens or on my website at tokyostationpens.com and on Twitter at Tokyo Station MNH.
And my name is Jacob, and I am Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
And this is Tokyo Inklings episode, I believe, 18.
Is it? Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
say 18.
18.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, and here we are at Tokyo International Pen Show.
Yes.
And it's quite a special episode for us because this is really one of the first times we're doing a live kind of recording. So if there are any hiccups, do forgive us, but we are right now live on Instagram recording our show. And so for everybody who's on Instagram Live, you get to hear us kind of a bit earlier. And then for the actual audio podcast, we'll actually put it out on Sunday as usual.
Right.
But yeah, we're going to try this new format. So I hope you enjoy this. I think it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and this is the raw, unfiltered version, and we will tidy it up by Sunday.
Correct. All right. So actually, we are at the Tokyo International Pen Show. And I believe this is the third Tokyo International Pen Show.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, I think last year was the second one, and then in the past 2 years, it was actually in a location in Asakusa.
Yeah.
And that was quite a smaller venue. So just to give everybody an idea of the venue here, it's quite a large space, right? But it's actually quite bigger than what we're used to. I think last time it was maybe about half the size of this.
Yeah, it's possible. I think also the fact there are fewer people here today contributes to that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it looks definitely more spacious.
it looks more spacious, but I think at the same time, I believe there are even more vendors this year than previous years. At least just from my kind of I would say hadakankaku.
But there are fewer attendees. Yes, and the reason for that is that they have all kinds of COVID measures in place. And one is that they have maximum number of attendees at any point in time. So I think today, so first of all, today is what they call the special day. So you're paying a bit more. I think you're paying 2,000 yen and to go here from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And I think that at most, I think there were 100 tickets. So you can be at most 100 attendees here during these 4 hours. And tomorrow and for the rest of the week, I think they have between 50 and 100 people for each time slot. So they're controlling it that way.
Yeah, and I think last year there was also a significant number of people, especially from Asia and Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
who were here. And this year, obviously, it's only Japanese. So I think that will affect the attendance numbers.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's interested in last year's event, I think Alessa at Inky Rocks, she did a great recap video last year where she did both the Manila Pen Show as well as the Tokyo International Pen Show. So I do encourage everybody to check out the comparisons because I actually think that this year is probably an upgrade. And even going forwards, I think the amount of people here right now, that it's not super crowded, actually makes it a more pleasant experience.
Yeah. So I think the special day pass, the Friday pass, was sold out. So this is probably, I would guess that it won't get more crowded the rest of the weekend because it is as many people as they allow right now.
Yeah.
And it is, you see a lot of people, but it's very organized and people have plenty of time to look at the vendors' tables and yeah, it works
Exactly.
very well.
All right.
It's not in Kunuma.
No, it's not. So that being said, you were here a bit earlier than I was. I came really late in the afternoon. But had you had a chance to go around and look at the stores?
Yeah, I've been looking around a little bit. There are definitely some differences this year. One is, and it maybe it reflects sort of what I'm looking for rather than what's there. But I think I see more glass pens. There were ink last year too. There were a lot of ink last year too. I think we see even more ink this year, and of course we see more toner and limbs ink this year. This is sort of the breakout year for toner and limbs, right?
You know what? That's actually interesting because I was going to remark that I see more pens.
Really?
So there's a booth right over there. They have. Did you see the high-end makie
Yes.
pens?
Yeah, those
So
are
I think they're new and they're really really nice. They're
Mm.
really expensive though. But I'm still happy to
Mm.
see that the table next to them,
Yeah.
the one that you showed me, where they had the ebonite pens
Yeah.
with the pilot nib and feed. So that
Mm.
was really really cool. And I think that the vendors also brought more of their store exclusive pens, and there are more variety. So it's interesting that I think, yeah, I totally agree with you that there's more glass pens
Mm.
for sure. I actually think last year had more of an ink focus. Maybe it's not that there's like, I don't think there's less ink here this year,
Mm.
but the percentage, the share
Mm.
between pens, inks, I think it's actually improved this year. And one of the things that I see more is that there are more vintage pens this year than last year.
I only seen one table, and that is the same table we always see at Wagner. There's a Mr. Pilot has this table. I haven't seen any other vintage tables.
Okay. I didn't see Mr. Pilot yet, but Komehyo is there, and also Penland Cafe from Nagoya are here. So I saw some vintage Mont Blancs that he had there, and he had some vintage
Mm.
Watermans too. So those were pretty interesting. I might want to check them out
Yeah.
later. But yeah, I think definitely more stuff. I think is the general consensus that we have here today.
Yeah, and it's not just it's not just a repeat of last year. There's some new vendors. There's some new products that we haven't seen before, and yes, maybe we should just get into that and talk about some of the most interesting things we've seen at the show so far. So for me, I think one of the most interesting things was Yamamoto Paper. So I think this is a small paper vendor. I think they're fairly known, well known overseas too. They create this. They have this paper sampler and they sell these Rubiki notebooks. Um, their new product, which they are announcing here or selling today here for the first time, is an upgraded version of the bank paper. So they have worked with Mitsubishi Paper Mills, so the company behind the traditional bank paper. And they have come up with a new version of this bank paper that is more white. So the standard bank paper is more sort of cream colored. This is more white. This has less of a texture. It's smoother, and it's meant to show off. Can we see that? It's meant to show off sheen and, in particular, shading even more than the standard traditional bank paper. So now you're showing my show notes, but that's fine.
No, I think you're right
Yeah.
because touching it, I noticed that it's very, very smooth.
Yes.
I think it's like Rhodia smooth.
Yeah, I pointed that out to the guy that it almost feels like Nalder fill. No, not quite Nalder fill, but it's more Nalder fill than old bank paper.
Yeah, because I think old bank paper was quite toothy.
Yes.
It had a lot of texture. But this one, I mean, just feeling it,
Yeah.
it feels like, I don't know, it feels like skincare to me.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a feeling that this is going to be quite popular because we've seen a resurgence in popularity of bank paper, right? And it has to do with this chromo shading trend, this trend where you have these inks like Sailor 123 and similar that shade in different colors, and you see Sailor and others they show off their inks with the bank paper because bank
Yes.
paper has that property, and this new paper is supposed to have even more of
Yes.
this.
And I was talking to the guy at the booth, and I asked him, is there something that you want to tell your overseas customers?
Yeah.
And he said that actually he really wants to show the paper collection. So this is kind of a new product. I think rather than saying that it's a new product, I would want to say that it's an upgrade.
Yeah, there are different types of paper now, right? Including, I believe, his new bank paper, which, by the way, is
Correct.
called Takasago
Premium.
Premium Bank Paper.
Yes. So he said there's a few different types. So there's the extra white Kinkakuden. There's the Yamamoto Bank paper, and I think there was one other one, but I don't remember right now.
Right.
And interestingly, you can see here, for example, that you can get both bank paper
Mm.
and Yamamoto bank paper here. And you can see that the Yamamoto one is actually quite a thick paper. It's almost 90 GSM. It's 87.9. And I asked him, and he said, yeah, we actually could make it thinner, but we wanted to make a paper that was more thick. Though when I touch it, it doesn't really feel like
It
very
doesn't feel,
thick.
yeah, exactly.
And what he was telling me was that this paper is special also because it's made from it's made in the Mitsubishi factory, but it's made by a machine that's over 100 years old. And I think he said he was interested, and you can see here, right? He said he was interested that it's interesting that as paper manufacturing has become modernized, you can make more paper, you can make more paper. He's actually going in the direction where he makes very, very small lots of this very specialized paper in an age where even bigger companies like Tomoe River are deciding to outsource their production. And so I think it is quite interesting. And you can even trace down to the machine that is used. So he's using Takasago unit number 4, and so it's really really interesting because he really even when he's making this paper taster, he wants people to first of all enjoy the paper and enjoy different types of paper. He says that when a lot of people go up to him, he say, "Oh, what kind of paper should I use?" But actually, each paper has different specialities and different effects, different qualities. So it's really difficult to say. But when you have this kind of paper tasting, right, you can really compare yourself and see how each ink really reacts on each paper. So what you were talking about in terms of Sailor, especially their new ink studios, they tested that on three inks. That's actually quite interesting because I think it's one of the first times that an ink maker really came out and specifically said, "Hey, our ink acts differently on different paper." So I think there's a bit of a interplay in terms of that.
Yeah, and going back to our episode about the Ishimaro ink blending workshop, remember we talked to him about fountain pen or ink friendly paper. Which paper would you recommend to really show off these shading properties? And he also mentioned bank paper. Um, as one of the types of paper that works very, very well and really shows off the ink properties. So I definitely think there's been a resurgence in popularity. But going back to what you said about this explanation that he's not just selling a product, but he's selling a story. And he was very keen also when he talked to me. He wanted me to really read or take a photo of the page we're showing here that explains, the Takasago paper mill and so on.
Yeah, and he told me that you can see this watermark. I'm not sure if everybody can see that. Um, let's see if I can. No, maybe it's a bit difficult to see, but there's actually a watermark right around here.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah,
Right
and it
there.
says 3 diamonds.
Yes.
Which is obviously what Mitsubishi means.
Yeah, which the standard bank paper has to.
Yeah. So I think this is a very exciting product, and I think people in the West will be able to get it from Sigure Inks and Jet Pens.
Most likely, yes.
And while we're on that topic, I actually bought their new notebook. So they made a new notebook.
The Cosmo.
Yes, exactly. I can't find it right now. I just had it, but oh, here it is. So I got this Cosmo Note. Everybody see it? Cosmo Note.
Yeah, he had an interesting story about that one too. I'm sure he explained to you about the paper testing, right?
Actually, I didn't hear that. So why don't you tell our listeners?
So I think if I remember correctly, I think he went to some US pen show, maybe the San Francisco pen show, and I think they had some paper testing lab basically where they have all kinds of paper and people try different types of paper to see what they like best. And this paper that is in this new notebook came out as the winner of in that paper testing. So this is the paper that was favored by the San Francisco, I believe, pen show attendees.
Yeah, that's great because Also, I've never tried Cosmo Air,
Mm.
so I'm really excited to try this because I heard that it's very very good with inks.
Right.
And yeah, it says exactly here, San Francisco Pen Show. He was urged by fans to make this product. So
Right.
so here it is, and I'm super excited. And I think this is 12 millimeter rule and 6 millimeter dot grid
Mm.
on a 83 GSM. So yeah, really excited to check this out. Um, so when I asked him, do you have anything you want to say to your overseas fans?
Yeah.
He said that he was very looking forward to going to pen shows after coronavirus,
Mm.
and especially he named San Francisco, DC, maybe some other U.S. pen shows. But he also mentioned that he really wanted to go to Europe.
Mm.
He said at San Francisco Pen Show he met a lot of French people
Mm.
who went to San Francisco, who are really, really passionate. So he really wants to bring his products out to Europe
Mm.
eventually, and also Macau, Singapore, Korea.
Mm.
So I think we'll be seeing more of Yamamoto.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So while we are on the topic of paper, I want to talk about something else paper related that I found. So there's this small stationery store that I've heard about a lot before called the Pumpukudo. So Pumpukudo is this small store in Chiba in Motoyawata, which is not a place you normally go to unless you have a very specific reason. It's not really a sort of tourist location, but they have a small store there, and the twist is that the store's only open on evenings. So you have to go to Motoyawata and you have to go there in the evening to buy their products. But so which is why not that many people have a chance to try them. But they are here today. They have a table, and in addition to just selling like standard stationery products, they also have their own like collaborations, their own products. And there's one that they are particularly proud of. Is I'm not sure if you can see that. Can you see? Are they in frame?
Yes, they are in the frame.
Right. So what this is it's paper from what they call Kobayashi. Now I don't know much about horse racing, but apparently when you do horse racing, you get some paper that explains the different horses.
Mm-hmm.
And that paper is you're meant to write with that paper on with your pencils, especially like red pencils apparently. And it's meant to be very very pencil friendly, but also fountain pen friendly. And they like that particular paper so much that they made custom notebooks with this Keba this horse racing paper, and that's what they're selling today in this little cute um, pocket notebook form. So I now just borrow these for the Insta Live, but I may have to buy one of these myself. These are not open, so I can't show you writing sample, but I tried them with quite an inky fountain pen, and it performed very well. So good, interesting paper, quite tutti.
Yeah, and yeah, as we said, there are a lot of little shops, even actually stores that I never knew existed in Japan that are here in
Yes.
attendance. So that's actually, I think, quite the biggest reward for
Right.
coming to the pen show today.
Yes.
Okay, we also want to talk about, I believe, Kobayashi, and we've
Yes.
talked about Kobayashi quite a lot on the show because they're notoriously difficult to get a hold of, right?
Yes.
So, Jacob, why don't you remind our listeners about Kobayashi?
So Kobayashi is this chain of stationery stores in Shizuoka. And there's one of those stores in particular that is very sort of high-end stationery fountain pen focused. And they produce original Sailor inks, more recently original Toner and Limbs inks, also pens from Sailor, and also more recently from Platinum. The thing about Kobayashi is that most of the time you can only buy their products when you are in the physical store. Like you actually have to go to Shizuoka, and it's not like you go take the JR to Shizuoka station and it's just 2 minute walk. It's actually quite a bit far away. Um, every once in a while they go to events such as this one, right? And sometimes they sell some of their pens online, but that happens rarely, I would say. So most of the time you have to go to Shizuoka. So that is the story behind Kobayashi, and they have some of their inks in particular are incredibly popular. They were one of the earliest ones, or one of the early ones with these light sort of turquoise but very sort of muted pastel like, and you have the ink chart there. So their inks are immensely popular, and more recently their Tono and Limbs inks have been immensely popular because they teamed up with a popular calligrapher in Japan, Furin, and they made this shimmering ink. And there's some sword theme to these shimmering inks, and they have been just incredibly popular. And again, sometimes they sell those inks on their online store, but most of the time you have to take the train out to Shizuoka and a taxi and get out to the store and buy their inks.
Yeah. Do you mind helping me open this?
I can open this for you.
Yes. So the katana inks that you were talking about just now, I have one on loan here, and this I believe is the yellow one. So you can see here, Bunga Kobayashi, and I'm not going to open it, but just the packaging itself is quite different from the regular Tono limbs
Yeah.
packaging. So they really have something going on, and that particular ink, I believe, um, it's this one. So you can see it's quite shimmery, and it's made by Total Limbs, who are obviously really prolific in
Yeah.
making these inks. And then I also have here with me Betrism 4. This is a paler pink ink, and this one is here. You go right there. Yep. So, yeah, this is really quite their specialty.
Yeah.
I would say that their inks are actually what propelled them to popularity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they also make a series of pens.
Yeah.
Kind of, I think the pens are named after the inks.
Yeah. They usually do the inks first.
Yes. And we have here actually with me a Kawasami. I think this is the Kawasami C.
Yeah.
So,
And C for century perhaps.
oh yeah. So this is quite a beautiful limited edition pen, and you can see they kind of took the Sailor idea of different finials.
But it also looks very much like one of the sailor pens, right?
Yeah.
The finials are different color, but the main body color is almost exactly the same.
Correct, correct. And what's interesting, and we've talked about this pen before, but this pen has a soft medium nib,
Yes.
and
He was particularly proud about that. So I asked him about that because, as we said previously on the podcast, usually a soft medium is reserved for Platinum's limited editions or for Nakayas, right?
yes, yes. So this I think is really really cool as a product from them. I think this is particularly interesting because he actually has a stash
Yeah.
of these
Yes.
special pens
Yeah.
that have special grinds.
Yeah.
So we're not going to tell you.
We're not going to tell you all about it, but there's a special stash, yes.
Yes. So this special stash, we're not going to tell you what it is, but we'll tell you it's special, and it's made by a let's just call him a very famous nib grinder. So he has those, and there was one particular grind. It was a bent nib made from a SM nib.
Yes. And I asked him about that, why start with an SM for this grind, and it was less about the properties of the SM and more about the fact that it's so unusual.
Yeah, it's like a bragging right,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. I tried the pen, but it's actually, I don't think it was too different from the regular version.
Right.
So I'm not sure if the SM actually made a difference. Yeah. So that's really cool. And we asked him, do you think about selling your products like more online or more to the Western audience? And he was very quick in saying no.
Right.
And he said, yeah, we're not really thinking about it. So you have to pay by cash or credit card. You can't pay by any of the electronic payment options. And so I kind of joked with him. I said, yeah, the domestic market is actually
Yeah.
big enough for you
Yeah.
to swim in, and he non unironically agreed.
Yeah, it's not like he was against selling overseas. It's just that he's selling so much now that it's not really an immediate concern for
Yeah,
him.
he's not really interested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but I asked him, you know, what kind of trends did you see, given that Tono Limbs is so popular,
Yeah.
especially this year, right?
yeah.
And he actually said to me, he said, uh, Sailor is more popular with the lighter colors,
Yeah.
and Tono Limbs is more popular with like the darker, more exciting colors.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that quite interesting because obviously Sailor can do sheening
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, as he said, Sailor's lighter colors are so well behaved too.
Yeah.
So that's I think a strength of Sailor. Oh, and by the way, this sample this is written on Tomoe River, so you can see all of their colors here.
So one more thing I want to say about Kobayashi, and I think the two inks you picked here are so representative of the two ink trends that we have in Japan. So you have, on one hand, you have inks for fountain pens, and that's where you have this pastel colored, increasing the chromo shading, and the Becher ink represents that.
Yeah.
Then separately, you have inks for glass pens, which is increasingly becoming like a separate thing. And that's where you have more intense colors. And that's when you have a lot of shimmer. We talked about this metal shimmer and all kinds of particles that don't make them very suitable for fountain pens. And this sword ink represents that. I mean, you may be able to use it in a fountain pen. I asked him about that. Would you recommend it? He said that you don't see much shimmer and you have to clean it a lot. So it was like you can, but this is not what it's meant for. Was sort of what he was getting at. So I think these two inks very well represents the two separate ink trends that you have in Japan.
And interestingly, the calligrapher that he collaborated with,
Yeah.
they use this ink with a brush pen,
Mm.
obviously because
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
a Japanese calligrapher.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then lastly, maybe I want to talk a bit about Bunga Box.
Yeah. I have one more product to talk about later, but let's do Bunga Box first.
Okay, so Bunga Box is here obviously as one of the main vendors. As the owner of Bunga Box, Kaoru-san, she's one of the main organizers
Yeah.
of the event. So I asked her, I asked their team, what would you like to show on the podcast? And without a doubt, they said they wanted to show this Streets for Men pen. So we've never really had an opportunity to talk about it while it's in our hands.
I'm a bit worried that you're gonna drop it.
You wanna hold it?
I'll hold it just in case.
So you see really this Raden Urushi detail, and you see it going up, and then you see this is actually silver powder. It doesn't look silver, but it's actually silver powder that represents the moon. So this, of course, is a very, very cool pen. And something else that I would like to talk about just briefly is about these
Did you
little.
get the mini too? Yeah.
Yeah, I have to. I want to talk about this notepad. They're really good at making these notepads like that have little motifs, and I think a lot of stores do this kind of stuff in Japan. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's popular in the West, but I don't think so because I don't think there are like stores that are necessarily famous for being stationery stores.
Sure.
But here it's much more common.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, I also have
That
this
one, yes.
Twinkle Star or Twinkle Stardust. So here's the Twinkle Stardust, and it has this cute box sticker. And then I'm gonna open it, and then voila. This is the Twinkle Star, and it's quite a pretty pen. What do you think about it? Because I've seen the sample for I think since last week, so I've seen this pen. But what are your impressions?
I think it looks better in person. And one thing I like in particular is how these sort of the glitter on the cap and barrel, how it matches the rodent on the cap finial.
Mm.
I think that combination works very well. One thing about the Mini I think is interesting, and we talked about how they recently made a new version of the Slim Mini where they removed the threads um, on the raffinial, right? But the new, but the Fat Mini still has that, even in recent models like this one. It may be less of a problem on the fat one.
So I've noticed that I've handled about 4 or 5 fat ones
Yeah.
since that, and all of them actually do align. So I think it must have been more of a problem on the Slim Mini because the Slim Mini had a smaller barrel.
Right, right.
So that was probably more difficult to align the clip.
One thing I really like is the nib imprint, the little like stars. Might be hard to get out in focus.
There we go. Yep, got it.
I think maybe that's even my favorite part of the whole pen. I asked, by the way, which nib widths are the most popular ones, and they said that in Japan, and the Japanese buyers they buy like fine or medium fine.
Yeah.
The foreign buyers buy zoom and broads.
Yeah, I believe that the medium fine is the most popular nib size in Japan.
Which is probably why you see it so often on the second-hand market. There's a lot of medium fines being sold.
Yeah, and can you show the cap band as well? The cap band has a special engraving. Cap band.
Okay.
It
Should I
says-
rotate it?
Yep. It says Twinkle Stardust. Yeah, really, really nice pen, and I think it's just stunning.
Yeah, this is a very, very well-made one.
Yeah.
I personally, I like this one more than Mongata, this the Street for Men.
Mangata.
Yeah. By the way, yes, a bit of a tangent, but if you look at their website now, they changed it from Mangata to Mongata. They
Oh,
added
nice.
a circle above the A. I wonder if that's our lobbying that.
But they can't change the.
They can't change the cap band.
Change the cap band.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But yeah, it's a very very nice pen. All right.
So I have one more product to show, which I think possibly the most exciting thing about the show for me. So there's a small company in Japan. Alessa is here showing off her loot. Ah, Toyota.
Yeah.
Toyota. Beautiful.
Say hi to all your listeners.
Inky Rock says hi. So there's a small vendor here from I think Gifu in Japan, and they are selling a new product for the first time today, and that is these aluminum pens.
They sold these last week at Ginza 6.
Right, because I think that they told me that today is the first time. Maybe some of the models. No, there's one model they sold before, but most of the models were today for the first time. And the main feature is a metal dip pen.
Yeah. So when I talked to them last week at Ginza 6, they tried to tell me that this is the first ever metal dip pen.
Yes.
Which, dip pens are metal.
Yeah.
But it's certainly the first one with a glass nib style nib unit.
And they say that
Go ahead.
the main sort of selling point is that you don't have to dip it nearly as often as you need to dip a glass pen. So they were demonstrating this at the table. There was one guy drawing like 100 lines.
Okay, that takes a long time.
It took a long time, probably, but he did not have to re-dip it in between. So you dip it once and you can write basically like a whole page. So that's the selling point. Another one, which is I guess more of a minor point, but because of the way it's produced, so they have two nib widths, 0.5 and 0.8, and because it's made by machinery, it's 0.5 means 0.5 every time. Like what glass pens, because of the way they're made, there's some individual variety there. So these are very pretty. I like them. I asked if you can buy them online, and they said no, we haven't created an online store yet. We started our Twitter account today. So let's put a link in the show notes to the Twitter account. But they're just getting started up, and I think this is such a cool pen. And they said they said that the 0.8 in particular works very well with inks that have shimmering particles.
And I want to draw special attention to these channels, the ink channels. So you can see that there's so many ink channels
Yeah.
for ink to be held, and that's why you don't have to dip it multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think this unscrews too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So this one actually takes 2 nibs.
Nice. That's hilarious.
Yes. So you can buy replacement nibs, and you can. So right now they only have 0.5 and 0.8, but presumably they might have more versions coming.
All right. So in terms of products, obviously there's so much more to see and do, and it's really difficult to go product by product. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's Toyoka here, there's Betchery here, there's Ken's Night here.
Yeah.
There's so many people here. Our favorite Mori-san is here.
Yes.
Leaktop is here. Actually, they're sitting right in front of us. So yeah, it's really difficult to go through store by store.
Yeah.
But I think, and I hope that we gave a quick idea about what it's like to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we want to open it up to some questions. If anybody has live questions, we're open to answering your questions right now. So just let us know in the comments. So we're gonna wait for some questions. But we do have a lot of comments saying that this particular pen is really, really cool.
Yeah.
While we're waiting
Okay.
for questions, what are your closing impressions about the show?
My closing impressions are that it's very well organized, and I mean not just in the sense that you get to see all the tables, but also that it feels like this is how you run a pen show during a pandemic, right? It feels safe to be here.
Yeah, and for example, Nagahara-san's table is over there, and he is actually still in Kure, right? And he's doing his nib grinds from Kure,
Yeah.
but through Zoom. So that's pretty cool.
Actually, one thing about Nagahara which I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, so he's not here, so you cannot do nib grinds. The idea was that you had to send the pens to him in advance, and you will get them back today. But the other thing is that they are selling at his table. They're selling pens ground by him. So they're selling Concord nibs, so he has to call them a beak. He's selling Naginatas, Kodachi for the small ones.
Which is actually an internal name in Sailor for small size Naginatas.
And then he has a needle punch too. But what is interesting is we're looking at the pens that he's selling. He's selling pilot pens with Nagahara grinds. He's selling platinum pens with
but not Sailor.
But not Sailor.
And he also has that silver stuff, the silver overlay.
Yes.
Which
he always brings to his pen grinding and nib grinding events. Yeah.
All right, so we have our first question from @Sabakane. So this is Akane from episode 17. She asks, are the metal dip pen tips the same on both sides? The answer is yes, but you can change the size of the tip, right? So you can do either, as Jacob said, 0.5 or 0.8.
Well, yeah. The answer is that it depends on what you're buying, because they're selling just the nib holder, and then you have to decide about what nibs you buy with it.
Right. And there are also bodies that only take one nib.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this one is an example of that. Takes only one.
All right, this one only takes one.
And by the way, this one is machined in such a way that it lines up perfectly.
Awesome.
Beautiful pen.
All right. So @Havoc Rose writes, she says, spotting any new trends? More so, any new cool trends that you think will stick and maybe make it overseas. And she also wants to see the Twinkle Stardust. I'll just move the video here. So, any new trends you see?
I don't think there's anything that we haven't sort of covered in recent podcasts. Well, I think the main thing is we're talking about inks, how there are two separate ink trends. There's the ink for fountain pens, but it's chroma shading pastel colors. There's ink for glass pens that is intense shimmering inks.
Yeah, and I think what we talked about both, you saying that there are two different types of inks now, but also what Kobayashi told me about how sailor inks are more, let's say, subdued,
Yeah.
and then tonal limbs are kind of more out there and wild. And it really just depends on what you're looking for. And I think that just means that it depends on the clientele, what
Yeah.
clients like what products. Okay. So let's see if we got any other questions. So at Mirai Cat, our good friend Quay, she's asking, how is the Tips Christmas caroling?
I haven't seen it yet. We should get Alessa here. She got a chance to try it, but it looked from photos it looked like a bit sort of Okuyama like, maybe a little bit more I don't know, a bit more purple to it. Maybe.
Kind of maroon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. I don't see any other questions now, but I think this is really a cool event. Obviously, this year it was difficult for a lot of people to come, but would you recommend people to come to this event? I mean, if they had to choose maybe one or two events to come to Japan, do you think this is one of the major ones?
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, one of the major ones. I think there are really there's three main events that you may be interested in. Depends on your interest, right? So there is the Wagner's pen trade if your main focus is vintage. There's the Inkinuma if your main interest is this regional Gotoji ink, and there is this one if you want new pens.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the one where most of the stationery themes clash together. So there's inks, there's new pens, there's Inkanuma stuff.
Yeah.
So everything comes together at
Yeah.
this event, whereas the other events are more focused.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for vintage pens, probably this is the wrong show.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for some new Japanese products and kind of the latest and greatest in the Japanese stationery scene, I definitely think that this is quite an interesting place to be.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to say?
No, I think that's pretty much it. It has been an interesting to do a live streaming. We'll see how well that works, and if it does work out well, there are other events coming up where this might be something we do again.
Yeah, and obviously we're gonna try to make the logistics a bit better. This time we are recording with two phones, so maybe next time we only record one. But yeah, we're gonna try to make it better.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting format.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody. So for everybody who's just joined, I think you can catch this video on my Instagram live. I'll save it to my live stories, and for everybody else, you can listen to the audio version, which will be edited over this weekend, and we'll release that on Sunday as usual.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.